Hello and welcome to another edition of 10 Minutes with Dr. Tysana. I am your host, Dr. Tysana Jones from MindWorks Collaborative. This series was created to gather sage advice from educators across the field to shorten the learning curve, to assist folks with better living and moving forward in their profession, to connect the dots, to improve learning outcomes for students of all ages, especially students with exceptionalities. This month, we have focused our conversation around data. Today, we have an amazing classroom teacher. And we forget about our classroom teachers. I don't know how people can, but sometimes they do. But our classroom teachers are the folks who are collecting data every single day. And so we're joined today by Miss Traci Holland-Shuford, who is an amazing science educator who works with every child and makes things accessible. And so I wanted to bring her on so she can kind of talk about her perspective, her background as it pertains to data and using data in her classroom. Traci, will you please introduce yourself and just give us a quick tease of why data is so important to make your everyday decisions for instruction?
Hello, everybody. Hi, my name is Traci Holland-Shuford, and I've been teaching for 19 years. I was a career switcher, so the reason why data is so important to me, because being a practicing scientist, as all teachers are, because pedagogy is a science, that you need data to drive your experimentation or to drive your actual laboratory, because our classrooms are a working lab, regardless if you're teaching English, math, science. They are a working, functioning lab. You need to take that information and make that a cause and effect. So the student instruction is the way you instruct is your independent variable, but the student's performance or the way that they do well on the data, that's your dependent variable, and you combine the two. So the effect of so if the student does well, then on a certain assessment, that you can move on to the next content or the next topic that you need to handle or need to teach.
Awesome. I love how you paint that picture that way. You are such a scientist. And as you were speaking, I'm drawing charts in my head, right? Because I'm like, yes, because that's essentially what we're doing. So I do this, kids do that. If you teach something, this is what I tell people, if all the kids failed, it ain't the kids' fault. So what about your data set? How are you putting together your data? How do you do your pre and post? How are you measuring? Where's that differentiation piece? Like, walk me through some of how you're setting up your data systems so that you can make informed decisions.
Okay. So at the beginning of the year, I always give the students a modalities survey so I can know how they learn, because they know how they, like, what I mean by modalities, and that's the differentiation piece. So if they learn tactile, if they're visual, if they're auditory, so they take the survey, because a lot of them don't know how they learn, but the survey gives them insight into themselves. So because I'm a science teacher and data is always evolving and changing, I don't do one big pre-test at the beginning of the year. Maybe if you're doing a math, because it's a skills-based class, if I was a mathematics teacher, I would, because it is a skills-based class, and math skills build upon itself. But science is so autonomous, and like each content has their own little bubble. They may or may not learn certain content. So for each unit, I give a pre-test, then I give a mid-unit test, and then I give a post-test, and then I give a summative. So the pre, the mid, and the post are all formative, because then that tells me whether or not they're ready for my summative. And my summative may not be a test. My summative could be a lab practicum. My summative could be a project. But the actual data that I use to drive my instruction is the pre, the middle, and the post. Because if I give the students an assessment, let's look at the data, and then I'll actually, and not only do I just look at the class as a whole, but also look at the assessment by question. So I look at the statistical analysis of questions. So if I look at, like, if all the students answer question number 4 in assessment wrong, then it may not be, one, I may not have taught the information, or 2, the question may be worded in a way that students cannot comprehend what the question of themselves actually asking. So
yeah, okay. So you've definitely hit a few things that are really important. I think we need to be really just mindful of what we're asking kids and just being constantly evaluative of our own practices and having a system in place. You mentioned that with science, you do by unit a pre-test, a mid, and an ending test, and different kinds of summative activities. And you also talked about the need to kind of move those things around and to really evaluate individual pieces of your evaluation systems. But I hear a process. So what I'm hearing you say, I hear different processes. So it just is important to put together a process that works for your content area and works for your students. Yes. You mentioned doing a modality test on the front end. So as you've been in the field for 20 years, there's different things that you've developed along the way that some may be more visual, some may be more auditory, some may be more kinesthetic, and you're allowing kids to kind of move and flow based upon how they receive information. So I just see fluidness and multiple data points for information, and you're constantly checking yourself and checking the students' understanding. What 3 pieces of like advice would you give teachers to think through as it pertains to them setting up their classroom and thinking about it as this laboratory and this experiment?
So, and in any lab, you need to be flexible. So, and not all experiments work the first time. Like a lot of times when I'm actually practicing, when I was practicing in a physical lab versus the classroom laboratory setting, if I was doing an experiment, if I was doing research, and if it did not work, then I had to go back and look at and adjust my procedures and my practices. So as a classroom teacher, your practices and your procedure, your scientific procedure, is your lesson plan in the way that you're delivering your lesson. So what you need to do is, like, first of all, don't take it personal. That's number one. Mm-hmm. Number two, if a kid doesn't, or if the students don't perform well, then like you need to be flexible. Okay, they're not getting it this way. Maybe I need to give up lecturing, and maybe I need to do more hands-on tactile, because maybe that's how they would get it. Or maybe I need to look at how I'm differentiating for the kids using this data. Like, so if you look at it in a perspective, and you might have to retweak your hypothesis, because when I do my lesson plans, that's you writing a scientific procedure, and you're also hypothesizing. If I teach it this way, then the kids should learn it, and that's the purpose of a hypothesis. If the independent variable, then the dependent variable. So one stage of advice I would give teachers, especially new teachers, is don't take it personal. Like, if they don't do well, don't like, I'm a horrible teacher. No, just that particular, the way you taught it that way, maybe you need to change it. Be flexible in your practice. And then be open to learn different methodologies of doing things. Like, a lot of seasoned teachers are set in their ways of doing instruction. And so a lot of them have a hard time of accepting creative criticism, and or even for themselves. Like, if a student tells you, I didn't get it because I just didn't get it. Well, what do you mean you didn't get it? Like, and a lot of them do that. Like, what do you mean you didn't get it? Well, they explain, ask the students, like, what didn't you understand? Because they can tell you. Like, they can tell you if you give them the opportunity to express their concerns. So the 3, so be flexible, don't take it personal, and listen to your students.
So these are just things that I think would be great for most people just to listen to and think how you can change and what you can be doing in your classrooms to better your evaluation processes and to put into a system. Thank you so much, Traci. I look forward to talking with you again about differentiation. Again, there's things I've seen in your classroom, so I'm definitely excited for you to share out and to share with our community. So thank you.
Thank you for having me. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure.
Thank you. See you later, Traci.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.